Good evening and welcome to the Badger Politic.
Welcome.
How's it going, Paul? I'm Scott Stearns.
My name's Paul Sickle. I've got to talk louder into the mic.
Apparently, I muted you last
time.
Yeah,
I guess my opinions don't matter anymore.
Yeah, we're trying to minimize your opinions, apparently.
So we have an abbreviated podcast tonight.
I wouldn't say it's abbreviated.
I hope so. It's really hot in here.
It is. It's July in Wisconsin.
July 10th.
What's going on? Has there been any news this week? You know, we're coming off a holiday week. I'm sure there's not a whole lot going on, right?
No, there's always a little something.
Yeah.
We got Brett Kavanaugh is our
who's
Supreme
that?
Court nominee to replace Anthony Kennedy.
Okay. So who is Brett Kavanaugh, Paul Sickle?
I don't know. I don't really know anything about him other than he wants to empower the president to not have to be prosecuted, which is probably why Trump picked him.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you think that was a differentiator amongst all the other candidates that were running?
It's the most interesting thing.
Yeah.
Well, and he seems actually, from what, just a quick review, a little less ideological than maybe Gorsuch.
Yeah.
So in a way, obviously I'm not happy about it, but it's hard to imagine, him picking a candidate I would like more, I guess. Well, Trump picking a candidate I would like more.
Well, he's very much an institutional judge. He's he's kind of been in the circle for some time. Worked for multiple Bushes. I think
he's 53. Trump said he wants for somebody who could serve 40 to 45 years.
Sure.
So that would mean he'd have to go till he's 93 to 98.
Well, at least a generation or so, right? I mean, that's what they're looking for. They don't want to nominate somebody that's in their 60s or 70s. They want somebody that's going to be around, that's going to be able to make a difference, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, Brett Kavanaugh, he was a big he had a lot to do with the Ken Starr investigation of Bill Clinton back in the 90s.
Nice.
He was very much responsible for a number of legal arguments that Ken Starr made as part of the independent counsel
impeaching
investigation.
Clinton for his indecent behavior.
Yeah,
but not prosecuting Trump for his indecent.
Well, yeah, that's the irony, right? Is that he was making a lot of arguments about how Clinton should have been impeached. Mm-hmm. And then once Clinton was no longer in power, and George W. Bush was in power, all of a sudden he made an about face,
right?
And no longer believed that presidents should be troubled with legal proceedings and those kinds of things while they're in office.
So should Kavanaugh be confirmed? First of all, do you think he should be confirmed?
Well, no. I mean, I just definitely, on the face of it, I think I disagree with him as the nominee, just given where we are today.
Well, no, right. But, I mean, would Trump, if he gets rejected, will Trump nominate someone better?
No, probably not.
Okay. And then the second thing I would ask is if we were to confirm or not confirm Kavanaugh before the election, how will that impact the Democrats' chances in the election to hold the Senate or to win the Senate?
The hope would be, assuming this pans out how we assume it will, where Brett Kavanaugh gets nominated, then hopefully the backlash is that people realize, holy shit, the court just swung to the right, and now Roe v. Wade is actually under threat.
Right.
And so that hopefully helps.
So none of those will be heard before the election, though? No cases?
Well, the cases won't be heard. However, it should be a campaign issue because he does have a record, and he's on record as being anti-abortion.
Okay.
So
I thought you said he was maybe not that strong on that issue.
I don't think he's as strong as others.
Yeah,
on the Federalist Society list.
Right, because it's interesting. It does seem like a lot of times the Republican presidents nominate someone who winds up voting pro-choice on the court in their second nomination. Right. Almost as if they want the issue to remain out there so that they can rail against it.
Yeah.
This is a real weird, way of looking at it. I don't think that's what's going on, but you never know.
Well, it sounds like one of the runners up to Brett Kavanaugh is Amy Coney Barrett, which she's much more conservative, maybe more of an activist.
She's more anti-choice too, even though she's a woman.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So I mean, so if you would play this out,
so she's a real cultural conservative.
Yes.
In every sense. Okay.
So I would think if for some reason, by some miracle, Brett Kavanaugh would go down, I would think there'd probably be very much a likelihood that Amy Coney Barrett would be the runner-up, so to speak, and she's not a better judge. But then I'm sure they would play up a sexist card if against all the Democrats that would vote against her. So I don't know that the end game is any better.
Right.
With Kavanaugh going down. Per se.
Well, and I wonder if Kavanaugh goes down, if I just strongly suspect that what would happen is that they would be able to use that as a wedge issue in West Virginia, Indiana,
North Dakota, Montana.
North Dakota.
Yep.
I'm not so sure about Montana, but yeah, possibly.
So just to provide context around that, so we've got senators that are up for
Democratic
re-election.
senators in deep red states that look like they could be in trouble.
Joe Manchin, the most notable in West Virginia. Trump won that state by 40 points or something.
At least,
And then you got Heidi Heitkamp in North Dakota. You got John Tester in Montana. You got Joe Donnelly in Indiana.
Claire McCaskill in
Missouri,
yeah. So you've got to protect a bunch of seats in deep red states, not to mention states that are shallow red, like Wisconsin with Baldwin and Michigan, Debbie Stabenow, Pennsylvania, Bob Casey, Ohio, which is pretty red nowadays.
Yeah, you got
with Sherrod Brown, right? So Brown,
I'm confident about Brown, though. I think
well, they say this right now. The shallow red states all look pretty good for the Democrats. So Baldwin, Stabenow, Brown, and Casey look like they're in pretty strong positions. Except
Bob Casey is actually a pro-life Democrat or an anti-abortion Democrat.
So I don't know if he's against Roe v. Wade though. And so he's kind of. I don't know. It's hard to say. It's not quite hardcore, I don't think. And Bill Nelson in Florida, though, is actually one in a shallow red state that looks very vulnerable in the polls, running against Rick Scott,
the
sitting governor,
term limited.
So he's challenging Bill Nelson for the U.S. Senate seat.
Yeah.
And so that's the only one in the shallow red. So basically, there's deep red ones. So all these are states that Trump won. They're Florida, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin. And those are your shallow red states. And then you got your deep red states, which would be Indiana, West Virginia, Missouri, Montana, and North Dakota.
Yep.
So those are the ones we're watching out for, basically, on the defense.
Yeah.
So I think the shallow red states, it's safe to say almost 4 of the 5 Democrats look pretty strong and safe. Nelson still looks like he could win it.
Yeah.
Typically voters don't reward governors that try to become senators and senators that try to become governors.
Sure.
For whatever reason, it seems to be the case. I mean, Tommy Thompson was the last one who tried to do it here, and that didn't work for him. Baldwin won. So, but there's a long history of this, of voters, for whatever reason, they like people and they're one role, but they won't keep them.
They don't appreciate career politicians trying to promote themselves.
Something like that. Right. Kind of like when Walker ran for president.
That's a
preview of part 2 of our show. But anyway, so then you got so we've got one vulnerable though in the shallow red states, and then you've got the deep red states. McCaskill looks quite vulnerable now.
Yeah.
Donnelly looks very vulnerable. Heitkamp supposedly is looking okay. Tester's looking pretty strong, actually.
Yeah, I think John Tester's kind of a survivor, I think.
And interestingly, the polling has been good, kind to Manchin so far. He's kind of an institution in West Virginia.
He is. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily put him up there. Well, maybe he's probably the closest thing we have to a Robert Byrd in West Virginia in terms of a guy who's,
He's not as progressive, though.
He's
not.
You're right. I mean, but at the same time, I think it seems like people in West Virginia, they've endeared themselves to Joe Manchin. Regardless,
Joe Manchin's endeared himself to them. Right.
Sure.
So what I think is that Manchin probably would stand to lose the most by voting against the Trump nominee for the court.
But the thing is,
just because it's so deeply, it's the most read of all these 10 states we talked about.
It's not like if Manchin votes for Brett Kavanaugh for the Supreme Court. I mean, do we think that Trump's going to call off the dogs and not campaign against him come fall?
I think he would be more easily painted as a party line Democrat than that's standing in the way of draining the swamp in a state that's rabidly pro-Trump.
So you're right. I mean, I guess that makes it harder to make that argument.
I actually think Joe Donnelly in Indiana, especially with Mike Pence as the vice president from Indiana, similar story. Missouri's been trending really poorly. It used to be like a Wisconsin or Ohio, and it's just turned really far red in the last 20 years. It's more like Indiana now than it's even like Wisconsin. So Missouri would be another one I would say would be tough for McCaskill. The one thing McCaskill could say is, as a woman, she feels like her rights are under attack.
Sure.
And I think that would be a powerful defense that frankly, Donnelly and Manchin aren't in the same position to make. Plus, I think Missouri might still be a little bit more winnable than Indiana is, and certainly much more so than West Virginia from the Democrats' perspective. It's very close to Indiana, but not quite that red.
Yeah.
North Dakota and Montana, when you start getting more west and north, I think you have electorates that tend to like to buck the trend, especially Montana.
Yeah.
Heitkamp, I think, might be one who might need to vote yes on the nomination as well.
I would say that she's probably more likely to vote yes than John Tester, for sure.
More likely than Claire McCaskill.
Yeah.
I think
totally.
Plus, McCaskill's got a big name. She could fundraise off of her opposition. She's been around for a bit. Heitkamp's the lesser known, from a very small state. I mean, she could make the same case that McCaskill's making, but I just think North Dakota's more red and more rural.
So then the interesting thing is that we're looking at a vote that's good once it reaches the whole Senate. We're looking at probably a 50 to 49 vote in terms of Republicans versus Democrats right now, because John McCain is in not good health, so it's very unlikely to actually end up coming to
Collins
DC.
Probably votes against the nominee.
That's not a given. But,
unless he comes out as being pretty moderate on some issues.
She has a decision to make, because she's not up this term, but she's up in 2020, and she's toyed with the idea of running for governor. She said so far that she's not going to run for governor, but she may or may not be run for re-election.
Watch out, Susan. They don't like you switching jobs, governor or whatever.
My question is,
stay in the Senate.
My question is, does Susan Collins consider at some point just switching parties?
That's always been brought up. I
don't know if that she switches parties. This seems like it's a trend that exists in the Northeast, where people they don't necessarily switch from Republican to Democrat, but they switch from Republican to Independent and then caucus with the Democrats, because that's what happened. That's what happened with Jim Jeffords in Vermont back in the early 2000s. Angus King is an existing
was he a Republican
senator from
before?
No, but he's an independent from Maine who caucuses with the Democrats.
But the Chafee.
You have Sanders, obviously, from Vermont, who caucuses with the Democrats.
But he was never on the right.
No, but the point being, it seems like there's an independent streak that exists in the New England area. And I could see the appeal for somebody like her, who sees her support waning amongst conservative institutions.
So she's going to vote no. That's what I thought.
Well, but I wonder what the fallout is from her if she does want to run for governor, or if she wants to run for re-election.
I'm saying she'd vote against the nomination.
Why
would she vote for it? It doesn't make sense, especially
because she has never really voted she's never really voted against. I mean, she voted for Roberts. She voted for Alito. I mean, she's never demonstrated that she's she's never demonstrated any kind of independence when it comes to these big votes.
Well, if she votes for the nomination, the Democrats won't have her, and independents won't either. So
true. So if she wants to run again, she's going to be
even
opposed.
as a different party. Even in a different party, or as an independent.
Well, what I'm saying is, I think it's kind of put up a shut up time for her. If she believes that she can win as a Republican in 2020, then she votes yes. If she believes that her best chances for survival are to vote against it, then she. I think there's a good chance that she's no longer a Republican.
Better than me, but I actually think she's a renegade Republican. Who will say I'm still conservative on this, that, and the other thing, but
then does she get primaried then?
She might, but I think she's got an institution that. And then she might, if she gets primary, she might jump to the independents.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So it may she
may
already be mapping this
like
out.
Lieberman did on our side. I think she votes no.
Okay.
So I think that's your 50. It goes 50-49. If all the Dems stay in line, but I don't think they do. I think that Manchin slips. I think that Donnelly slips.
At least
and I
two.
think that
At least two or
Heitkamp
three
probably does too. And so you got.
Then you're depending on if it stays the two, you don't think you'll get Murkowski.
Well, you might get Murkowski, but why would you? Because it's not decisive. Even if she did switch.
True.
Because so if you go to 50, but then you take 3 Democrats out. The best you get is back up to 48 votes if Murkowski goes.
Here's how it kind of probably plays out: is Murkowski is probably sitting in the cloakroom waiting for every other vote to come in, particularly the votes we just mentioned, and just to see where it comes down, and then she comes down and votes where it's not a difference maker.
She's in Alaska, which is a little like Montana, where they reward people to buck the trend, so maybe she does vote no. What the hell? Maybe she does.
Bottom line is she doesn't want to be the decisive vote.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Even Tester probably wouldn't want to be the decisive vote.
Yeah, probably.
So I think he gets confirmed 52-40, 51-48, or 52-47.
Yeah, something like that. I would agree. I think he's going to go through.
It's not going to be pretty.
No, it's not. I mean, we all kind of knew this is where it was going. When the 2016 election wrapped up, we knew that Trump was going to get at least the nomination to replace Scalia. Because he wasn't going to nominate Merrick Garland.
So let's say,
we knew he was going to get one more, and he may even get 3.
So let's
Clarence Thomas might retire next year.
Let's just say all the Dems stuck together, and Collins joined them, and maybe Murkowski too.
Then it ends up being another
then we
conservative
lose.
justice.
So we win, right? The vote goes down 51-48. We stop this nomination from going through, and they nominate someone else. Mm-hmm. Who are they going to nominate?
Somebody more conservative.
The woman who's more conservative, right?
Yeah.
And meanwhile, what are they going to do? They're not going to do it before the election. They're going to go around kicking the Democrats' ass that voted no.
They're going to use that to motivate their voters to come out and vote in November.
And they probably do defeat Donnelly at that point.
And Manchin.
Possibly Manchin. Probably Heitkamp. I wouldn't be surprised if McCaskill loses too. And the weird thing about McCaskill is McCaskill's best play is if she votes no, but the nomination goes through anyway. Yeah. Because she can make the case then, I fought the good fight.
Yeah.
And I did so because our rights are under attack.
Yes.
But at the same time, if she votes yes, she appears feckless. If she says, and I think that's the risk for any Democrat voting yes.
Yeah.
Even though you might calculate that you're not going to get a better nominee. Mm-hmm. You're going to get a worse nominee probably, and then they're going to beat the shit out of you in the elections. They probably are going to hold on to the Senate more firmly. It's the kind of thing that could actually motivate a red wave in a close race like Florida or even Ohio, which is not that shallow of a red state actually. If you look at the last election,
right.
Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, I doubt as long as those 3 incumbents stay strong, they're probably okay. The Democrats.
No, I think you have to fight it. I think you can't be complacent if you're a senator. But yes, the likelihood is that he will go through, and
hopefully we may lose by winning. That's the problem. Because then once they get rid of 4 or 5 Democrats out of the Senate, or 3 or 4, whatever.
Yeah.
And they have a 55-45, and then they'll put through whoever the fuck they feel like, and it could easily be worse than Kavanaugh.
Well, or Kavanaugh goes through, and they don't have as much of a motivating factor to Republicans don't have as much motivation to
vote, and the Democrats are pissed, and it actually helps us carry some
correct
states.
Because people start to realize what time of day it is, and that Roe v. Wade really is at stake, and to transition into our next topic.
So I always hope that Kavanaugh gets confirmed. I hate to say it like that, but I mean, seriously, why? Why not? What do we get from blocking it?
It definitely adds an issue to this governor's race here in the great state of Wisconsin, because if Kavanaugh goes through, if the nominee is, I don't care if it's Tony Evers, Malin Mitchell, Kelda Royce, Mike McCabe, Matt Flynn, what have you,
it gets anti-Trump animus going.
It needs to be at the forefront that Roe v. Wade is under threat, and if that gets overturned tomorrow or the next term, whatever, that abortion would be illegal in the state of Wisconsin.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
So that needs to be a major issue for whoever is opposing Scott Walker, because he needs to be put on defense on this issue.
Sure.
That is one way that this may work in the long game.
Not even that long of a game. It's kind of an intermediate game.
Well, not in terms of electoral politics, but maybe in legislative politics.
Right, but it's a short to intermediate game if you really think about it.
Yes,
and that's so. Once again, I think that Kavanaugh getting through, might help us beat Walker, because I think when we look at the fundamentals of the governor's race, at best it's a jump ball. It's probably favoring Walker a little bit right now.
Well, I think
we were saying in the past,
there's the power of incumbency. There's the fact that unemployment is good right now.
So to speak. I think that that could get torn up a little bit.
It probably could,
because you had population loss, which are lack of population growth relative to other states, net migration, out-migration among working-age people.
Well, you compare us to Minnesota,
right?
And
so if you if we had the same migration patterns as Minnesota with the same job growth, our unemployment rate would be about twice what it is.
Yeah,
it would be one of the worst in the country.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a reason we're losing population. It's because the jobs aren't there. Walker hasn't made his goal.
We haven't invested in the universities, and
there's fewer unemployed people, but people have fled.
Yeah.
I mean, that's true. And then the people that are employed aren't doing particularly well. We've got a low-wage economy we're building here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think you got to remind people, low-wage Walker, because that's really what he is, low-wage Walker, and low wages get us low expectations and low performance. Just look at the roads, the Scott holes, as we like to say, the potholes.
Well,
they're all over. It's the middle of July, and none of these potholes, it seems like, have been even repaired.
No,
the freeways constructions that started before he was governor 8 years ago are still being
under
worked
construction
on at the Zoo Interchange.
The Zoo Interchange is this perpetual project. It's ridiculous.
Which he politicized 8 years ago.
Yeah, I know.
Is hilarious.
And it's the most traveled interchange in the entire state, and it's still under construction.
And by the way, for all those Foxconn jobs we brought in, or that we supposedly are bringing in, which haven't even been, now they're downside. But how many jobs did we lose at JCPenney's in the distribution center on Burleigh? And by the way, they didn't close and go out of country. No, the distribution center will exist. It's moving to another Midwestern state. Now, I wonder if the fact that it's 3 miles north of the most clogged up interchange that's been under construction for 10 years has anything to do with that.
I don't know. It's worth an argument.
It's a distribution center.
Yeah, right.
And they don't have reliable roads.
Yeah.
I mean, to move their products to market. Well, no wonder they're leaving. And those are good union jobs that we're losing, as far as I know. Really
paying,
good jobs.
family supporting.
So we lose 1,000 jobs there, because we can't get our construction projects in time. Meanwhile, we continue to blow up our structural deficit, because we got to build we got to give $4.5 billion to this Foxconn company that first said they were going to do 13,000 jobs, but now it looks like it might be more like 3,000 jobs, and who knows what they'll pay. Yeah. Enough of my diatribe against Walker, but he's got to be beatable. I mean, I think this unemployment thing is a mirage. I really do.
I think so too. I think this Foxconn, honestly, it's going to be a problem for him.
It's him picking winners and losers. Right. Yeah. Why didn't meanwhile he's sucking up to Trump, who's putting Harley jobs at risk. Yeah. I mean, no, he's not exactly a great jobs governor. I mean, he could say unemployment all he wants. Meanwhile, you got schools that are not just failing,
he's the education governor. Didn't you hear him say it? He's the education governor, Paul.
How many music and art programs have we cut? How many times are you worried about your kids?
If you got a kid in college right now, what's your student loans look like? What's your annual tuition payment?
Right. Well, he's saying he's held that down, but then of course we've lost a bunch of professors too. I mean, so it's, I just don't think the state works nearly on the level it could.
Sure.
And I think that people get an itch for the executive position, the governor. I think 8 years is enough in a lot of people's minds, and I don't think we need to do.
Well, not just 8 years. Scott Walker has been a career politician, Paul. When's the last time he held down a decent job that wasn't dependent on electoral politics?
So the issues are there. The tie him to Trump, like you said.
Yeah.
Tie him to Trump. Run a really good campaign against him. He's beatable.
He is.
But it is going to be pretty close, I think.
Yeah, I think so, too.
If he loses.
Despite everything he's done to tie himself to Trump and all the Foxconn stuff, I think he's going to probably not have Trump campaign for him come fall.
On the spot.
Yes. I mean, he'll probably make robocalls for him and this and that. But the evidence is all there that he has tied himself to Trump. And so basically, if you're not happy with Trump, do not vote for Scott Walker because they're in lockstep on the issues.
So it's interesting. There's a gap in the Marquette poll, which we do think might have been skewed a little bit Republican. But so the question is, where is, all things equal, where is the governor race right now? Walker versus a generic Democrat.
I still think it's within a few points. I think it's a late night
jump ball. Where you have to, which side does it roll on?
Well,
now, if you
I don't know. It's a lot is dependent on the candidate. I mean, versus generic Democrat. I don't know. I
think it goes to Walker, but I think it's so close.
I mean, if I was a betting man, if I was going to put $1 million in the thing, of course I'd vote for Walker because he's proven himself to be a very, very successful politician.
I mean, we were saying last week that we thought it was like a 55% chance somebody beats Walker. I'm going to revise it downward and say about 45% likely that the Democrat wins and 55% Walker wins.
Yeah.
So that said, that's not a polling forecast. I think the actual result would be much close. People always confuse the two.
Yeah.
Likelihood versus polling forecast. I think the actual result, the baseline is probably 51-49. Walker has about, in a two-party race, a 51 to 49% lead in theory if we were to have the election today.
Well,
so the question is, that's a 2-point gap. A gubernatorial election, probably not more than 2.5 million, because that's the highest there ever has.
That was the recall. Was 2.5 million turnout.
2 percentage points. 2% of 2.5 million. This is 50,000.
And this is the third term potentially of Scott Walker, but it really is his fourth election because of the recall.
So a 2 percentage point gap out of 2.5 million is 50,000. So the Democrats would either have to motivate 50,000 more voters or convince 25,000 people to switch, to tie. I mean, the ideal to win comfortably would be to switch 25,000 and turn out 50,000 more.
Well, yeah.
And then you've got a 50,000 vote lead. And you win by 2 points instead of losing. No, I think that is the ideal. And the question is, back to the Supreme Court, what helps us more?
Yeah.
Kavanaugh being confirmed or Kavanaugh being shut down, and then all the Republican outrage showing up?
In terms of November, I would say Yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow, but I would agree. I think
I mean,
Kavanaugh probably going through probably does more to motivate.
Because I think we are talking about potentially a swing of 25,000 votes and or a turnout surge of 50,000 plus one.
Yeah,
25,000 plus one. So you can either switch 25,000 votes over or get 25,000 plus one votes over, or get 50,000 plus one more votes than what we would project it to be today, and the Democrat can win. And so I think the question is, how do we... I think the Kavanaugh thing probably would help us a little bit. Probably not tremendously, because it's still seen as a federal issue.
But maybe it depresses the turnout on the Republican side.
And it probably pisses off everybody.
At least in some of the red states that we're worried about, because if the opposite happens, then it motivates people.
And if your ears are bleeding right now when you're listening to this, because I'm saying that a Kavanaugh confirmation helps us.
I know.
That's right, because your ears should be bleeding. Right? It's you, our listener, who gets more fired up, more angry, and more out. Obviously, everybody who listens votes.
Hopefully, more people give to Planned Parenthood.
You start donating more money. You start getting your ass into the streets.
Yep.
Hopefully, if we did somehow stop Kavanaugh, you'd still stay
the
active.
Same thing.
But
in all likelihood,
something tells me it doesn't quite work that way.
Yeah.
So, it's just something to think about.
Yes.
And then, the other thing is, what kind of candidate do we have? Does Captain Excitement, Mr. Tony Evers, do it?
I don't know.
That would be the generic Democrat, I suppose.
Probably.
You think generic? You think generic old? You think?
I think we're
an age generic Democrat.
We're still thinking I think our top five are still Evers, Malin, Kelder Royce, Matt Flynn, Mike McCabe. Those are the five, and I think of the five, three that have any shot are Malin Mitchell, Kelder Royce, and Tony Evers that have any shot of actually beating Walker.
I was going to call McCabe and Matt Flynn the M&M brothers, but then I realized Malin Mitchell's M&M too.
What's the date, Paul? What
August 14th.
August 14th, everybody. Mark it on your calendars.
And next week, the Wisconsin's Choice organization's doing a straw poll. I'd encourage everybody to vote in that.
All right.
There's also Our Revolution doing a straw poll, but you have to join their Revolution online and pay monthly dues. You have
to pay for the privilege.
This is the Bernie group, and they're trying to raise money off it. They're trying to create momentum for whoever their funders support. That's like basically a poll tax, since this is a public election we're talking about.
Yeah.
They're running a poll tax. The Bernie group is running a poll tax effort.
So you're paying for the privilege to have your voice heard.
Really, I hope people skip our Wisconsin Revolution needs a little bit of to revolve.
That seems like a waste
if not evolve. Okay, so thumbs down on our Wisconsin Revolution.
Thumbs down and forward.